Joel Gandara's journey is nothing short of remarkable. From fleeing communist Cuba at just 4 years old to building a thriving business empire in the United States. He's currently the founder of the 31 Daily Challenge and the host of the Joel Gandara podcast. Joel's entrepreneurial spirit ignited out of necessity, and he shares how his early experiences shaped his relentless drive. In this episode, Joel discusses his various ventures, from selling chocolates and trading cards as a child to creating a successful apparel business and navigating through significant challenges. He also reveals how a pivotal setback led him to establish his own brand, ultimately resulting in a lucrative exit. He's since built a thriving coaching business and launched his transformative 31 Days to Become a Better Man program. Join us as Joel delves into the importance of taking action, overcoming adversity, and fostering strong community bonds amongst entrepreneurs. As always, if you found value from this content, please like and subscribe. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Beyond Fulfillment podcast. I'm your host, Dave Goulas, and this week, my guest is the founder of the 31 Daily Challenge and the host of the Joel Gandara podcast, Joel Gandara. Welcome,
hey, Dave.
Joel.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. So you've got quite a story, as we were discussing off camera, where you fled communism and you came here and really built an incredible life and incredible company. Can you just give us your backstory?
Sure. As a kid, I was born in Cuba, and I got on a boat with my dad, my mom, and my older brother, and we fled. This was the 1980 Mariel boat lifts, and we were on that boat for 12 hours. 4 of it was a ridiculously scary storm. My biggest fear in life has been the water because it was rough. It was really, really rough. We thought we were going to die. Everybody was yelling and crying and screaming, but we made it. Got here to the U.S. and took that big risk. So worth it. I think about it every day. Every single day I think about we're here. I got to make every day count. And grew up very poor, just outside of Oakland, California. We got into Key West and sent immediately to California. That's where I grew up. And went from zero, figured things out. Had to buy my own toys in 4th grade, my own snacks. My parents provided the absolute essentials, and everything else was my responsibility. And so, yeah, I started buying my own toys because I traded some cards and made some money. I started selling chocolates, and I learned a lot about buying wholesale and selling retail and supply and demand, all while in elementary school. And that led to the next step and the next step. And, nothing happened overnight. It took a lot of work of doing things the wrong way and slowly learning what to do better.
Wow. Okay. So it sounds like you had that entrepreneurial spirit just innately very, very early on. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, out of necessity, yeah. Maybe my parents, had they had the opportunity to baby me or give me things, I probably wouldn't have sparked it. But what really sparked it for me was this necessity. I saw kids had after school snacks that they bought on their own at the kitchen at the school, and I didn't have any of that. And I saw that they'd bring toys and they'd show them off at school, and I didn't have any of those. So that's what sparked it. Because of that reason, our 4 kids, we were afraid that they wouldn't have that spark because there is no necessity. There's no need for them. So we've created that so that they have this artificial need. For example, no, we're not buying you any of those things. We'll teach you how to make a bunch of money. And they've been able to do that, buy their own cars, pay their own insurance, do all their things on their own, even at young ages.
Okay. All right. So let's just go back to the early days. So how old were you coming from Cuba?
I was 4.5 years old. And the next question is, you were pretty young. Do you remember any of it? I have a very good memory. I wouldn't say I'm that smart, but I have a very good memory. I remember my life in Cuba and, simple, 4.5 years old, but I have pretty good memories of that.
Okay. And so like you said, right, it was a treacherous journey just to get here. And then once you got here, you knew you had to make every day count. I mean, so like what was it like? Just give us a sense too, like growing up in communism. I know you're only 4 years old. So, but I mean, just some of the things that maybe some of the audience, if they're not familiar with that, might take for granted. Can you shed some light on any of those kind of things?
Sure. And it's always the illusion, communist dictatorships are very good at propaganda. So I asked my dad as a kid, I said, Dad, if communism is so bad, why do you see on TV This is after we got to the US. Why do you see Fidel Castro talking on TV and everybody waving flags and cheering him on and 100,000 people in the square? And he explained to me, well, it's because if I, I had to go to those, he said. If I didn't, I would lose my job and maybe get arrested. But if I showed up, they'd give us a beer and a sandwich. So, you're going to get paid for the day and you got to go there and you got to cheer because your boss is watching you. So also, a lot of it happened here. The influence on my life of communism didn't happen while I was there. Why? Because I was a little kid, and sure, we only got 2 toys a year, but at that age, you just play in the front yard, you play in the house, you play with the neighbor's kids, you play at your grandma's house, you walk to the corner store or whatever it was. You do those normal things. But the stories that I got to hear from my dad, for example, a 3-year sentence for not being a communist at 17 years old, sent to a labor camp to cut sugarcane by force. That's rough, and that affected my dad. Till this day, it still affects him. And on top of all of that, his parents had to leave the country. They got an opportunity to leave in 1967, and he left. He was left alone. No parents, no siblings. They're all gone. So when he comes out of that camp, that labor camp, they only kept him 9 months out of the 3 years because he was dying. They let him go home. He went home to an empty house. Parents were gone. Those things go on generationally, right? Those effects don't just get erased the day he got freed or the day we got here. My dad's the type that would shower in the US with all the freedoms and availability and abundance that there. He'd shower and have a bucket on the ground so that any extra water that splashed off him would go in the bucket so he could water the plants. He'd find a piece of wood in the street. Till this day, he'll still pick it up and see if he can make something out of it, because he lived such a life of not having anything. And then coming here and growing up in poverty and starting over, that all had an effect as well, for the good and for the bad.
Okay. Yeah. Appreciate you sharing that. All right. So then you're here, you're in school, you're starting to have some success buying your own toys and making some money early on. Like when did you have your first actual, I guess maybe post school type business and like, how did the journey go from there?
When I was 17 years old, a coworker, he was in his 20s. So to me, he was an old man. I was 17. I was in high school. He said, "Hey, Joel, can you lend me $500? And in the next couple of months, I'll pay you little by little, and I'll pay you $550." I did that till that. Now I'll fast forward a lot of years. I've lent millions of dollars. That was my first taste of like, okay, I'm getting to be an adult. I'm seeing like that could make me some real money. That was cool, but I only had a couple $100. I had 500-600 in the bank. Lent it to him. It worked out. That was cool. I started going to garage sales toward the end of high school when I was driving. And shortly after graduating high school, I found a garage sale selling brand new jockey underwear. The guy had a whole bunch of them. It turns out he was a sales rep, and these were his leftover samples, and he's allowed to sell them, give them away, whatever he wants. And I bought 500 of them at $1 each because I talked them down to $1. Took it to the flea market over a couple of weekends, and it turned into $3,000. Sold them for $6, bought them for $1. These were $13, $14 items. He called me every 6 months and said, "Joel, I've got another 2,000 pieces, 2,500 pieces at $1 each." And then I discovered, this is 1999, I think. Yeah, I discovered eBay. I no longer had to go to the swap meets, flea markets. I now started selling on eBay at a $10, $12 price point, and I was still buying them for $1. So that was like the first taste of, well, I can't quit my job because this is a temporary thing. I get a little bit at a time. But now I'm starting to see like there's something here. This might be the direction to go to make real money.
Okay. And then what happened next?
So the guy would call me 11 years. Every 6 months, he'd say, "Joel, I've got more samples. I'll email you the list. You can buy them." And we did that. But in those 11 years, it didn't take me those 11 years, but within that time, I started digging because there's something to this underwear, swimwear, apparel business. I need more products. And I don't even know if Google existed, but I would be on Yahoo maybe searching all the time and trying to find factories and brands that I could distribute. But what I did find was on eBay, I saw someone selling these underwear and swimwear really expensive in a setting, auction setting. And I did some digging and I found the distributor. I later found the factory in Mexico who actually made those products. I contacted them. I said, look, they were blown away. They said, "We've been waiting for this call for 20 years. Because we want to sell to someone serious in the US." And they said to me, "Do you speak English?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, I speak it very well." And they go, this is it. This is our answered prayer. We've been looking for this. And so we worked out a price. I started buying from them. I didn't know what I was doing. They gave me like a $4 price. I started putting these things on eBay for a lot of money, $30, $40. And then they gave me the idea. They said, why don't you go to trade shows and we get this in stores? I go, okay, I've never done a trade show, but let's give it a shot. I put up my first trade show in Las Vegas, sold to stores, went every 6 months, and slowly, again, not knowing what the end result was going to be, started building this up, started wholesaling to a lot of stores, boutiques and mail order catalog businesses, and got into 7 figures of sales with that brand, kept growing it until a really dark day when they got a taste for what I was doing. They saw that I was selling millions. I was buying about $1 million from them, from the factory, and I was selling millions of dollars. And they saw that, and they started contacting my clients directly because, you know, their stores, they can figure out who's buying my stuff. That was a bad day for me. It was a depressing day where I thought it was over. Like, the party's over here. I'm making all this money. It's about to go to zero. I had a wife and 2 kids. Now we have 4 kids, but at the moment, 2 little kids. And I thought I was going to lose it all. And that forced me, one of the worst days of my life. And it forced me to switch gears. I created my own brand in apparel. I made my own underwear brand. We did $1 million in the first 13 months. I still had that brand from Mexico. So that was going on still. But as a safety precaution, I started my own brand. And that got us going. Then I started a second brand. Then I started acquiring companies. And I bought 14 different businesses in that industry, grew it, and recently sold that company.
Freight shippers, are you tired of dealing with unreliable freight brokers? Tired of delays, missed delivery appointments, and no one to talk to? Tired of unpleasant surprises, reclass, reweighs, and the invoice always being higher than the quote? Well, you can enjoy a better freight experience with SPI Logistics. I joined SPI as a freight agent to deliver that better freight experience to our 3PL customers. SPI has 30,000 vetted and approved carriers, all modes of transportation, so we can tailor the equipment to the shipment, and the fully trained and experienced operations team who is always available to help. And you'll get the same quality customer service that you've come to expect when you deal with me. If you've got freight to move, go to freightbydave.com. That's freightbydave.com.
Wow. Okay. So you took what was potentially a big setback and someone really trying to go around you, so you were distributing their product, and you use that as fuel to create your own brand that could basically insulate you from someone going around you, being that it was your brand.
Yeah, I always had this vision that on one side I have the distributor, on the other side I have the customers, and all I am is an empty shell. You know, I buy it, I put it here, I promote it, I do everything I can, and I sell it, and we're all winning. But what if they go around me one day? Maybe I planted that thought there, but that was a scary moment. And then the day that I created my own brand and it immediately started selling, not my first orders to stores, because that's who anybody can get a first order. It's that second order, third order started coming in. I said, okay, I've got something. And that gave me such security because now it's not an empty shell. It's a half-filled shell. I now own the intellectual property. The trademarks were mine. Nobody was going to take that from me. But what was still missing is I still had to go through the stores. Those stores could stop buying my product and then I'm out of luck. So what I then decided is I now need to become the owner of the customers' emails. You know, I need to be the store. And that's what led me to start exploring the possibility of buying direct-to-consumer websites. And then once I was able to land my first profitable purchase, it went really well, and we can go into it if you'd like, that changed everything. I now manufactured at $350 a product, and I retailed at $15 a product. I cut the middleman out, and my risks were gone as far as being taken out of the market.
Okay. And when was this when you started doing the direct-to-consumer websites? Around what year?
The first one that I bought was, I believe that was 2012. So up until then, I was a wholesaler.
Okay. So in the very early days of e-commerce. Wow. Okay. So, I mean, throughout this whole story too, I think a central theme sounds like is you didn't know what you were doing, but you took action and figured it out. And even if it wasn't perfect, you probably stumbled along the way, made some mistakes, but the continual theme is you kept taking action, getting better, figuring it out, and finding a way to make progress. I mean, would you say that's been like story of your success?
Yeah, that's absolutely. It's not strategic planning. It's not intelligence. It's at that time it was not experience. I have some now, but action was the thing. And here's why. I'm a person that even as a little kid, I remember I'd stress out, or maybe it's anxiety. I don't know what it was, but I'd get worked up over things. And as a kid, I would do jumping jacks, do push-ups, do something to get the energy out. I was labeled hyperactive. I've now been told I have ADHD. That's a superpower. I love it. But what happens to me, and maybe millions, I'm sure, or billions, is we get in a bad, stressful situation. And then if we coil up and don't do anything about it, we're going to sulk and feel sorry for ourselves, and nothing happens out of it. Nothing good comes from it. In fact, we can get into bad habits of drugs and alcohol, television, pornography, whatever, social media. Before I even think of doing any of those things, I want to go take action because that will alleviate my stress. I found that to be the case back then and still today. If anything stresses me out a little bit because, oh man, I don't know about that, then the next 10 minutes are dedicated to me searching for that online. Or I don't have that, I don't have that information. Or, I'm not prepared for something and it's coming up in a few days. I have two choices. I could sit here and sulk, or I can go do the work and prepare for it. So yeah, action has always alleviated my stress and it's gotten me better results.
Okay. All right. And then so you made the decision to sell the company and then kind of switch gears. I mean, just talk about that and what made you decide to go that road.
Yeah, and this is a good business that, we worked it up to over $1 million in EBITDA and without partners or debt. It was very profitable for me. But it wasn't, and somebody told me years ago, you have to find your passion. And I always thought, no, my passion is making money. But as I got older, I started realizing, yeah, it's not really my passion. Once you have enough money, you go, that's not really my passion. And I didn't know what my passion was, but I organically, accidentally started mentoring for free because I had a lot of free time. I still own the business, but I wasn't in the day-to-day anymore. And I had a lot of free time to dedicate to my family. But when my kids were at school and my wife might go volunteer at the PTA, I had time. And I started volunteering myself for entrepreneurs programs and accelerators and entrepreneurs organization and all these different things. And that led to someone asking if they could hire me as a coach. And I said, oh, no, I don't charge. I do this for free. He insisted. I let him hire me. And that turned into a coaching business, a program that I developed, a book that I wrote to help entrepreneurs get better. Well, that was going so strong and it wasn't making me over $1 million like the other business, but it was going very well. And I said, you know what? I don't think I need the other one anymore. I want to not even think about it. Even though I didn't have an office, I didn't go in for the day to day. It was always on my mind and that bothered me. And I said, someone could probably do better with this business. I've made plenty of money. I can exit now and pull some more money off the table and focus on what I really love. And it might seem like a step down. I went from a business that was doing millions to a much smaller business, but I'm having the time of my life. I don't need to work anymore. And I'm doing something that's just, I feel like I'm giving back, but yet it provides my entrepreneurial spirit to have those victories of like, I keep growing it little by little. So yeah, that's what I'm doing now. I'm having a great time.
Okay. And so let's talk about the program in the book. It's called so what's the book called?
The book's called 31 Days to Become a Better Man. And when you hear that, you say, well, that doesn't sound like for entrepreneurs or anything like that. Now we have a women's side, but this is the side I do. My wife runs the other one. 31 Days to Become a Better Man. It's a 31-day program and it's a book. And every day you do the task. So the task is read today's chapter. Day one, you read day one. Day two, day two. It's about 5 minutes of reading. But then, like you mentioned earlier, you got to jump into action. There's a physical exercise that has to be done every day, and it's specific what it says there. And then there's some mental, or get out a piece of paper and write something out, or you have to make this phone call, or you have to handwrite a letter. Every day there's a task for 31 days. They're all challenges, and we do them together in a group. 24 guys, roughly every month I start a class. 24 guys are launch with me. We communicate every day in a WhatsApp. And once a week, 5 times in those 31 days, we do a Zoom together. And the bonding that goes on in there is phenomenal. I've invested in companies of guys who've been through it. A bunch of joint ventures have come from it. But they're not there to do that. Those are just the side product that comes from, hey, we're all like-minded. We're mostly entrepreneurs in the group. We all want to improve as men, fathers, husbands. And that's the premise of it. The whole thing, the book's $20, the program's $200. And if it doesn't, they put an effort and it doesn't change their life, they get the $200 back. I don't need the money, but I need skin in the game. Otherwise, they're not going to try. And that's what I now get to do.
Wow. Okay. And so, you talked about the challenges and taking action and important people to have skin in the game. I mean, something else you mentioned is just the bonding aspect, and particularly for men, right? Which often are the providers and working the long hours, and especially in entrepreneurship, and very long hours. And talk about how important that bonding is in terms of maybe having other like-minded people that they can relate to what they're going through.
Yeah, I built this program because it's everything I did not have as I put my head down and worked 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for like 15 years. I think I did that. This is what I was missing. I had zero guidance or accountability, and I didn't have that brotherhood. I didn't have a group that I could go, hey guys, just want to think this through. I've got this opportunity to buy this business, or I'm having a problem with a vendor or a customer. I was on my own. I would bog down my wife with that stress, which she was amazing, and she's incredible cancer survivor, just amazing person and tough. And she helped me a lot. But what I would have gained had I had a group of men around me with experience, with their own problems that we could all help each other with, would have been game changing. And now, fortunately, I didn't have that when I was building it, but now I got these guys around me that I get to help support and give feedback to and help them bond. And they all say, when this thing's wrapping up over the 31 days, they always say, I'm going to miss this. I don't want this to end, because the accountability that I had in here got me to go from here at the beginning of the 31 days to now executing this in my marriage with my children, and my business is on another level, because some of those challenges make you reach out to people and take a step further. So yeah, that's the purpose of that bonding, and men need it. Most men, especially men who are entrepreneurs, are very lonely. They are head down, just working really hard. And what I provide is 30 minutes. That's about what it requires every day at your own pace. 30 minutes of do the 5 minutes of reading, do the couple push-ups, do the thing, and all that introspection with a group looking over you and helping you is a game changer.
Okay. All right. And so if people want to find out more about the program, get in touch with you and learn more about what you're doing, what's the best way that people can do that?
Cool. I appreciate it. It's 31dailychallenges.com. That's the number 3, the number 1, 31dailychallenges.com. On there, you can see there's a men's challenge and there's a women's challenge, and there's the sign up. And I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn, all that stuff. And if anyone messages me, you will get a reply from me. As long as it goes into my inbox and I can see it, I'd be happy to connect.
All right. And we'll link all that in the show notes for everyone as well. All right. Well, Joel, thank you so much for taking the time to be here, sharing your story. I know the audience got a lot of value, and we greatly appreciate that.
Thank you, Dave.
All right. And that is all the time we have for now. We will see you next time.